I'll call the Tuesday, September 7th meeting of the Personnel and Finance and Personnel Committee to order. Joan, please call a roll.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Council President Thomas.
Alder here.
And Mayor O'Connor is excused.
I'll entertain a motion on the minutes from April 2nd.
Move to approve.
Second. Any additions?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved as written. Do we have any appearances?
We do not.
No appearances. We'll move to item 6A, consideration of resolution 21-9-2507, approval of a 3-year police school resource officer agreement between the City of Monona, the Monona Grove School District, and the Village of Cottage Grove. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, just to let you know, recap from the packet. Included in your packet is a copy of the 3-year agreement. This was approved by the Monona Grove School District the kind of middle part of August. It has been approved by the Cottage Grove Village Board, so it is up for the Monona City Council for your review and approval with first read this evening and second read at our meeting on the 20th. And Police Chief Cheney Austin is here if you have any questions about the SRO position specifically.
Do you want to talk or just answer questions?
Well, if you give me an opportunity to talk, I'll talk. I think you'll regret that.
We always like to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. I will just add, thank you very much. I'll just add to City Administrator Gettle's statements in saying that the Cottage Grove Chief Labor and I have spent a good deal of time obviously doing some internal soul searching with respect to this program, and I am bringing sort of my philosophy into the mix here as to what the role of the SRO plays in the Monona Grove High School and some of the opportunities that exist moving forward. I will just say that there was a good deal of time since my start in June 1st this year that I've spent with all the board members, getting information from the general public who have sent emails, made phone calls, and have met with me personally about their opinions of the program. And I also met with the internal committee, a group of staff members assigned to review the program at the Monona Grove School District, the SRO program. And I also have spent time directly answering questions and speaking to the board. And so, as Administrator Gettle has stated, the school board has requested this MOU, and I fully support it. Thank you. Here for any questions.
Just a question. It's my understanding that both the school district and both police departments reviewed and modified the duties to make them more relevant to today's needs.
Excuse me. Sorry. Yes, that's accurate. We did adjust the expectations of the SRO, and there are what I would categorize as some really defined responsibilities of the SRO in the school, making sure that we highlight that letter, the R, the resource portion of their responsibilities, more so by a very long stretch. They'll be served as a resource to the school versus an enforcement arm of the school.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I did, I guess, and we had exchanged emails earlier today, and I like the language in there that sort of does what Kathy was talking about and not making the SRO a sort of disciplinary arm of the school district. There was, as you know, some language after that was, I thought, there's a sentence where after limiting what they would do, says an SRO shall generally not become involved in student discipline matters except at the request of the district. And my concern is whether that sort of opens the door and the exception swallows the rule. And give you a chance to respond to that concern.
Absolutely. I think the spirit of that, I'll tell you two things here, Alder, in response to that very good question. Jay, I think the spirit and intent behind that has to relate to a lot of what the discussion was between myself and the board as it relates to how I want to make sure that, in essence, we limit some of the enforcement that has previously taken place in the schools. However, I want to make sure that just because we limit the enforcement doesn't mean we limit the accessibility of that resource. So I want to make sure that we continue to serve as a legal law enforcement police resource to talk about safety and how we can improve safety in our schools and independent cases that may come up. I don't want us simply to be ignored because we might have pieces of the puzzle of that student or of that case that we're privy to in the community that would best match or mirror what they're trying to accomplish through any kind of discipline or any kind of programming that they might come into conclusion with. So I think what that allows, the language there, the intent and meaning behind the language is that generally speaking, we will not be sort of the principal agent in any sort of behaviors there that don't rise to a threshold in which we as police officers are somewhat compelled to act, or statutorily in some cases compelled to act, and that most cases will be handled by the school. However, I want to make sure that the school continues to utilize us as a resource to involve us as a team partner in whatever outcome that may be. And just because we're involved, I'll reiterate this again, does not mean that it will result in a law enforcement outcome. It shouldn't. The end result should hopefully not be a law enforcement outcome, but there are situations that may render that to be the case.
Sure, yeah. My concern from my past experience that I think it was too easy when you had an officer there, or they felt like if they observed any law-breaking activity that they needed to write a citation, whether it was for illegal tobacco possession or something like that. And I know you've given a directive to the SROs that you had mentioned
Yes.
in the email today.
Yes, so, and I thank you for asking that clarifying question. I've stated this publicly to the board, and my staff knows this as well. I've given directive that every contact or every consequence in which, or situation in which we've involved ourselves in an investigation or a school matter is not to result in a law enforcement outcome. And if things such as an arrest or a citation is to be issued, then that is to be done in consultation with the school. And things that will end up as a law enforcement consequence, like a physical custodial arrest, our SRO will, in situations where he can, which will be most situations, will consult with the supervisor prior to the proceeding.
Okay.
And I do think that having talked to school board members, they were very, very strongly concerned about not using the SRO for disciplinary purposes, and that they needed to modify the purpose and the function of the SRO, because they have the same concerns you do.
Oh, they don't want it to be used as, okay.
And if I may, that's one thing I also asked of the board, is that there's some, for lack of a better term, there's some work to be done in-house within the school district, and I think they acknowledged that, as there is some work that was needed within the police department to reach the same outcome, and that we're trying to limit the amount of enforcement action taken by police officers in the school where it's not necessary. And so they, I think, have already instituted or changed some policies that will help guide their staff into making sure that just because a police officer is tapped doesn't mean you can walk away from the call. It's still yours. We are there as a resource and not for that final outcome. It's different than if somebody in the general public, for example, calls the police and sort of expects the police to handle it from start to finish. In most instances, the school is different, and we recognize that.
Any further questions?
Nope.
Roll call vote.
Alder Wood,
All right.
Council President Thomas,
Aye. Motion passes. We move to item 6B, Consideration of Resolution 21-9-2508, terminating contract for Spring Haven Pagoda roof replacement. You can do that, Brian?
Yep.
I'm going to do that.
Both.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, in the packet materials, we have listed for you a request this evening for consideration. We're asking for a single star at tonight's City Council meeting. Basically, as we got into the Stonebridge reconstruction and park project, kind of upon visual inspection, noticed that the pagoda is in much worse shape than our 2016 study had indicated. And as such, after consultation with the Landmarks Commission, we're recommending that two things happen. One, City Council terminate that portion of the contract with Joe Daniels for replacing the roof on the pagoda and replacing it with a new constructed roof. And secondly, we're asking for City Council permission to go ahead and remove the pagoda in its entirety while we still have the Joe Daniels construction crew on site. And we would come back to the City Council and Landmarks Commission at a later date with a proposal for a full new construction of the pagoda. So with that, I'll turn things over to City Planner Plowman if he's got any other details or information on the request.
So what's going to happen to the pagoda?
It would be removed and destroyed. I mean, it is in such bad state of existence that even the act of probably removing it from the site would be enough to cause it to crumble.
Yes, I can just echo those points. It was the opinion of Patrick Egan, who developed the plans for the roof. He's a licensed engineer. It was his opinion that, upon inspection of the columns and the foundation, most likely the removal of the roof and placement of the new one, per the contract, the columns and the foundation would not be able to support that. So it was his recommendation that at this point there's probably efficiencies to be had from being able to rebuild the entire structure and not just doing the roof and trying to sort of match the two items together. That it's his opinion that would actually work better.
I have a question that someone asked of me, which is, can it not be replaced or fixed, repaired, or is the cost of repairing it so high that it's not worth doing?
I would say the information that I have, I think structurally there are significant issues, particularly at the foundation, just the joins that are made and the methods that were used. I think a lot of the repair work would be patching at this point, which, given the materials, it's very difficult to do in an aesthetic that would be in any way sort of reflective of the pagoda. And so I think sort of the combination of those things, both structurally and aesthetics, sort of leads the determination that a replacement is better than a fix.
Did you have any questions, Alderwood?
Yeah, is there any reason to think that this was damaged by the construction workers, company?
No, it was. We inspected it multiple times on site, and it was really more of a scheduling, a matter of scheduling rather than suddenly of any damage or anything like that. I think excavation took place around it such that it probably got to a greater depth than was previously seen in 2016 at that report. And I think just looking at some of those elements, particularly maybe below the ground level, if you will, that was really what exposed the biggest challenges.
Okay, good. Yeah, I guess it's not too surprising. I don't know that anybody knows exactly when it was built, but probably about 120 years ago or so. So it's not terribly surprising that a concrete structure like that would be beyond the end of its life. So,
Yeah.
And this gives us a chance to, decide what we want to put there, whether it's as much of a replica as what was there, or some changes to that, but that's obviously for down the road here.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Motion carries. We'll move to item 6C, consideration of resolution 21-9-2510, awarding a 5-year contract for city transit services for First Student Inc. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
So the Transit Commission went out for bids for a
5-year contract. The current one is up at the end of this year. You got 2 bids back. The last time we went out for bid, we got 3 bids back, so I think it's pretty close. First student came back. They did not include a price for new buses, only used buses, and smartphones and websites. Over 5 years, their amount was $1,519,552. The second bid we got was Mobility Transformation. And over 5 years, their bid is $2,311,488, for a difference of $791,936. The first student being a little bid. The Transit Commission looked at this once already and approved it, but they wanted first student to come back and explain some of their DEI training at the next meeting for the official approval. So they'll approve it on the next, I believe, the 15th of this month, and they'll come back again to the council for with their official approval.
Questions?
Sure. Mark, when it says new bus under mobility transformation and used bus on first student, what does that mean exactly?
So mobility transformation, they'd be brand new electrical buses.
All the buses that they use?
Would be electrical and brand new.
Okay.
First students, theirs would just be used buses right now. They would use the current buses they have. They did tell me when I was talking to them about that there would be one. They are going to rotate one new bus in and keep one used, but for now they just bid it as used buses. So they would not propose getting 2 new buses.
Okay. And overall, performance-wise, as the committee, are you pretty satisfied with first student?
Yes, I think first student, they've been pretty satisfied with first student. There was issues probably 10, 15 years ago with first student. We kind of hammered all those stuff out, a lot of it with new management. It's been running pretty smooth since.
Okay. The only other thing I mentioned also in an email to Mark this afternoon was that Madison is in the middle of redesigning their entire transit network, which will be implemented in 2023. So it would seem if we're going to reach out to them about better interconnections with Metro, this would be the time to do that. And I'm not talking about having Metro take over the service. I don't think we could afford that. But more having a mutual acceptance of transfers, maybe have them stop on Monona Drive and Broadway. They may have some other ideas, and I don't know what they would expect for that, but
And we kind of had a meeting about over 2 years ago. We sat down with Madison Metro, just talked over a lot of issues. One of the issues they talked about was stopping on Monona Drive and Broadway, and they did give us a quote for that price. Have the exact number, but I believe it was $120,000 more than what our levy was at that time for the transit service. So there was a difference with that. We didn't talk about accepting transfers and things like that. I mean, me and Brian are looking to set up a meeting with Madison Metro again and kind of just talk about things. So I think it's a good time to sit down with them and talk.
right. And they do have a new director. No.
They're trying to get on their calendar.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions, Mark. One, when we talked to Madison, Matt, and I know it may be more expensive, but I would assume that we can expect ridership to increase significantly if they have more places, more stops, or you can transfer more. So do we talk about that? I mean, when we look at the cost, do we look at any increase in revenues that might offset that cost? Or do they get all of that
They would get that.
ridership plus?
Yeah. So what they did, and they did an analysis for us, they gave us what their cost of the service would be, and then subtracting out ours, because they get our state aid portion, and then also they kind of estimate what the revenue would be from fares from Monona, and they subtracted that from that cost. So they did take that in their analysis of what they gave us.
Okay, my second question is, this is going up 22%. People think that's a reasonable increase, or is that
Um,
a lot? Because it seems like a lot to me.
For first student, it does seem like a lot. The last 5 years, when we went out 5 years ago, the other two bidders were same thing. They were probably about 800,000 higher than first student. First student always comes in low, so it is a little bit higher than usual for first student. But
So
it-
what's that going to do to the levy this, how much is it going to go up this year?
I remember right, it'd be about $20,000 increase, 20 to 25,000. Part of it's covered by state aid, so we get like 55% of their cost is covered by state transportation aid. But there is going to be about 20 to 25,000 increase to
And how many riders do we have for $25,000 increase?
With COVID, we're down. It's pre-COVID, we're roughly between 25 to 30 per day. Now we're down to probably 8 to 10 riders per day.
How many?
8 to 10 with COVID. They're just starting to come back. So with the Delta variants, if that doesn't affect it, but it is lower right now. Coming back to Doug's thing with Mass Metro, they would stop. The number they gave us would be stops on Monona Drive and on Broadway. The thing that they didn't, it would also be they would have a lift service too. So they, like our lift, Metro has a lift, but that was part of their number too. The thing is, they wouldn't go through the city, so you wouldn't have them go down like the current system goes, through Winnequa Road and different streets. This is only through the main drive, which would be Broadway and Monona Drive. So with this, with Madison Metro, it's kind of a big difference too.
Okay. Are there any other questions? This is a roll call, Joan?
Yes. Council President Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move to item 6D, consideration of resolution 21-9-2511, authorizing increasing the water utility billing clerk position to full-time. Is there a motion?
Move approval?
Second. Mark?
Yeah, so Leo might jump in here too. So basically, our utility billing clerk is leaving as of Thursday. She put her notice in. So we're looking to increase this position to full-time. This position used to be full-time, probably 8 or 9 years ago, maybe longer, and we cut the position down to 25 hours per week. And each year we're finding that we added the disconnection notices. Now with the new billing system, replacing the meters with the monthly billing, we find that we need more coverage. And also with more going on within the city, it's kind of also backup for receptionists and for the clerk, kind of a clerk 2 position. Just with the elections, when the elections are happening, which happens basically every other year, the elections are pretty heavy. This utility billing clerk hopefully will be a lot of the backup. With that, we ran into a lot of issues, especially during the last elections with this. That we found that we need some extra help, and would have been helpful for somebody to be there full-time. So we're kind of looking to increase that back up to full-time. This is paid by the utility side, so this is split between water, sewer, and stormwater utilities. There is an increase, but it does not increase the actual levy, the actual property tax limit with that. That's kind of all I have. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add in there. We were planning on coming to the council anyways as the beginning of next year in the budget, so this is just increasing, we're just moving the timeline up with Michelle.
Any questions?
Nope.
So, the question is that position currently full-time and she's doing other duties that are billed to the general fund, or she's currently a person who works 88%?
She works 88%, so, especially, majority of stuff is for utilities, but, just like sometimes Aline helps us with utility stuff, she helps with non-utility stuff, so it equals out between the two. So it would help to have an actual person kind of backing up both Aline and then helping out more with the elections. Or let Aline focus on the elections and kind of help do some of the duties. Aline was kind of doing answer the phones, working the counters and things like that.
Any other questions?
Nope.
If not, please call the roll.
Alderwood.
Aye.
Council President Thomas.
Aye. Motion carries. We will move to item 6E, consideration of resolution 21-9-2512, amending the capital budget for Winnequa Park paved path. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so in your packet, you have the proposal to do asphalt paving on a portion of the existing Winnequa Park path. This section is from the entrance at Nichols Road near the skate park, around the skate park. There's currently gravel there, which is a result of some remediation work from the 2019 dredging of the North Winnequa Lagoon, and the capping and gravel work that you see currently was done in the summer, fall of 2020, so we were kind of past that capital budget cycle, and internally as staff decided to see how the projects would bear out, to see if there was some contingency savings from those projects to be able to do the paving of that path. So we're looking for approval to do just the portion that you see that is currently gravel.
Any questions?
The two projects would be taken from the pool heater and water updates. Those projects are completely finished. Otherwise, they'd go to fund balance, so that's why we're using these two projects.
Any other questions?
Just a point of information, if the council would be agreeable, this would be an item we'd like to have discussed in one read tonight, if the council is comfortable with that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, one. Are you thinking that next year or soon thereafter we would then redo the rest of the path behind the tennis courts and the pool and along the school parking lot?
Yes, I believe that depending on the outcome of the capital budget with the architectural design of a public safety building, there might be some way to fit that in, at least into the design on how that all plays out. But the entire path from Greenway Road to the skate park is in poor, miserable condition. And so while the long-term status of the north end of Winnequa Park may be a little bit unknown, certainly that path gets a lot of use daily by people. So I think it'll be at least my priority in our 2023 capital budget to introduce that project.
Okay, good.
Further questions?
Nope.
Roll call vote?
Alderwood.
Aye.
Council President Thomas.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 6F, convene in closed session under Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This is full-time Park and Rec position. Is there a motion to go in closed session?
So moved.
Second, roll call.
Council President Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
All right.
We are in closed session. Can I go now? Thank you. We'll do 6H, consideration of resolution 21-9-2509, authorizing a full-time Parks and Recreation position. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second? Discussion?
Nope.
Roll call vote?
Council President Thomas,
Aye.
Alderwood,
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move to item 6I, financial report.
So it starts out on page 35 and 36, just kind of a brief overview. We still have some effects carried over from COVID last year. Kind of hit on those. We have some savings too, especially in the expenditure sides. We'll probably end up having if everything still goes, we're going to have a little bit of a loss this year in the general fund. So we are looking to correct those kind of going forward to next year's budgets. Just still kind of going with the COVID and seeing where we're at. And I think we're getting better. If you go page 36, liquor and under licenses, liquor and licenses. We got 4 open licenses. If we would have our max, or at least where we were before, we used to have like 1 or 2 set aside. We wouldn't have that. We wouldn't have a shortage of $5,000 because of the open liquor license. Right, not all open licenses for liquor. There is a little bit of a shortfall there. And that kind of relates to operating licenses too now. Just with the hiring shortages a lot, there is a little bit of shortage in, I think, bartenders. So that's a little bit down. As far as the other one, as of end of August and also through the end of July, all the permits, excavation permits too, are basically at 100% of everything else. So we will be over that account. We'll probably be over a good 50 to 75,000 at the rate we're going. With that, fines and forfeitures, court penalties, probably right now about 50,000 down this year. The reason for that is we don't book the revenue until they actually pay. I don't think we were writing as many tickets last year, so that's just starting to come around. This is 2021 is kind of the result of 2020. I think that's starting to pick up a little bit. It just started off slow because of 2020. On page 37, we kind of talked about this during budget time, fire protection fees. I think we're getting a little bit short this year. We're probably a little short about $5,000 on that. So on that. And also interest income, we're probably, it seems the interest rate keeps on going even lower and lower. So project about $75,000 down there, between $50,000 and $75,000. I don't have it in the month of July for some reason in there, but we are a little short there. Just a couple things. If you go to page 40, elections, they're all done for the year, so we do have savings there of $10,000. Data processing right underneath that, we're right on target for our IT contract. Page 42, this is the police department. There is about savings just on salaries, about $100,000, just because of we were down 2 or 3 officers at one time, with the chief being retired at the end of this year, Brian being hired later in the summer. There is a savings there, projected about $100,000 savings there. But there's been changes with health insurance, so there's a little bit of a loss. Or it shows about $80,000, if you want to call it gain under budget for that. So that offsets some of the losses in the revenue side. Even in the fire department too, there's been savings, about $31,000 for salaries, projected savings. We have one firefighter firefighter who's been in the National Guard station. I don't know, called up, so he's been gone for a while. So there's about $30-some thousand savings there. But our pay time and paid on premise to kind of make up for some of that is about 20,000. So there's a little bit of savings at the end of the year, about 11,000 with fire protection. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just kind of hit on page 51, the library. Page 51, the library, the expenditures. We are, for equipment maintenance and repairs, we're over about $6,000 already. A lot of that's not related to, there's always been an issue that's all HVAC. Only 4,400 of that's related to HVAC. There's been other issues they've been putting in that account, some carpets, some other stuff they've been fixing. If you look at the building and maintenance repairs, we're under about 6,000. So right now we're in net, but there will be a little bit at the end of the year. We'll be over with that. Talking about the kind of Jake in here. So page 52. I kind of summarized it that kind of the very one of the last on page. Take a look at page 79. I kind of summarize it with the revenues and expenses so you can kind of match them up. On page 79, it's kind of in the rec budget, kind of what we've been talking about. All the revenues so far today for the rec is almost just going to run up to 310,000. Expenditures at 276,000. So the revenues right now are covering the expenditures. Like 35,000, about 35,000 more in revenue than expenditures. We technically, if you look at that, we haven't even used our property tax amount to cover some of that. So going back to what we've been talking about in the last discussion, his revenues are, exceeding his expenditures to cover the additional costs on there. The pool, too, on there. We'll probably know more after we'll have a wrap up of that here fairly soon in the end of August. But we are going to probably have a little bit of gain in the pool. I think this year is probably one of the best years on record for the pool. So it's been a really good year for the pool with that. One area of concern for me is probably 55, the ambulance fund a little bit. We did change providers. And it's kind of, again, an effect of COVID. I don't think there was as many runs in 2020, and we don't book the revenues until we collect it. So we are projecting a shortfall in that fund. But there is some projected savings, about 40,000. So we could have up to $60,000 loss in that, and that's just kind of projections. But with that. And then kind of the next one, page 57. I know we're getting close on time. This is the last one I'll hit. Public tourism, the hotel tax. We're projecting about $225,000 this year is above what we budgeted. We've actually seen the Airbnbs making more money than the hotels right now. We're getting more money and room tax combined. I think we have 3 Airbnbs that pay us. The 3 hotels. They're pretty similar, but I think the Airbnbs last quarter were a little bit ahead of the hotels with that. So I don't have much. I kind of noted on the capital projects, which projects are done. There's not a lot of them done yet. They'll be finishing up here at the end of a lot of them are finishing up here in August and September. I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns.
Questions?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, we will move to item J, acceptance of general fund accounts payable checks dated July 30th to September 2nd, 2021.
I'll kind of make it quick. I know we a couple minutes before the council started. Page 82, overall North America. That is our contracted cleaning company. With that. Page 53, Dane County Treasurer, it's our annual fee, or quarterly, we pay twice a year. This is the first installment for the DameCom fees. Page 84, Howard Grove and Sons, this is the pump house floor epoxy. That was part of the 2020 capital. Page 86 too, Motorola, part of the 2020 capital. Underneath that, MSA, professional services. They're doing a lot with the I&I reduction. And I didn't touch on it in the financials, but our I&I, we're doing a lot of work this year, so hopefully we'll see some decrease in our charge for Madison Met. Hopefully we'll have some reduction in that with all the I&I we've been working on. Page 87 is Strand. I can see they're working on a lot of projects that are finishing up. Gateway Green is almost finished. Stonebridge is getting close to the completion. Two of the bigger projects. That's pretty much most of this. A lot of stuff is just everyday things. Page 105, HydroCorp, that's the cross connection. We've been doing putting these meters in, they're looking at the cross connections. With that, underneath that, Kilgus, these are the maintenance contracts we have with the libraries, City Hall. Page 108, going into 109 is Monona Bank, which is our credit card. Page 114, the last one I hit on. Going to law offices, this is the Walker claim. We are almost at our amounts and retainage, and then CIMIC will start paying these bills, and that's all I have. Just a couple, the last two I forgot to mention is page 125, Scott's Construction is the chip seal that was finished that we did this summer. Star Valley Landscape on page 125 is the retaining wall that's been worked out here. As you can see, the rocks all tore up. That's related to that. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Nope.
Sure. I'll entertain a motion to accept the general fund accounts payable.
Move to accept the general fund accounts payable.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Move
Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.